I'm Patrick Bailey with iQlist.com. Today is July 6, 2019. And in this video, I'm going to be going over how to make your Prusa i3 Mark III stick its tongue out. Okay, what am I doing? So, I have a need sometimes. In fact, I got two current needs. One I fulfilled, one I'm working on, where I need to stop my printer, do something with my print, but not necessarily change my filament. So it's easy enough to go into my Prusa slicer or the Prusa control and set a filament change point. And when you do that, it gets to that layer, and then you go through there's some controls. It talks about, push your button on your Prusa control, it spits the old filament out, it waits for it, you put a new filament in, and it does give you an opportunity to do something with your print. But what happens if you don't need to change out your filament? You just want to have it pause for some reason, and then after a human interaction, pushing a button, restart. And the two needs I have right now is, one, I am, as I may have mentioned before, I'm buying a new house. And so we're going to be moving there next weekish. And so what we have done is we've been debt free. We're kind of Dave Ramsey fans, but in this house, I had to go get a loan. So this is somewhat acceptable to get a loan for a house. So I have a loan like most normal people, but I really hate debt. So I wanted to represent and teach my kids that debt is bad. And so what I've been doing for the past few months off and on is printing chains. So I have some code out there that shows how to, print chains with numbers on them to represent a debt. And so a chain, in this case, is going to represent $1,000 worth of debt. And as we pay the house down, we're going to cut the chains off and have little celebrations. But the problem is, if you want to make, a significant size chain, it's you can't make an infinite chain. Now, but I'm trying to. So my next video, the video I'll probably do after this in a week or so, is how to make infinite chains. And so what I've come up with is a couple of things. So I can print a single chain like this all the way up, pause it, and then I can hook on a couple of chains and then let it close over. And so actually it has been working. There's more things I need to do, but that's one reason I need to pause. And also as I pause, I need it to stick its tongue out. So I need it to put the plate out as far as it can go, so I can have easier access to it rather than it being pulled back. Another reason I need it, and I do use it for this, I have used it for this several times, is I have a couple of prints where I put magnets in, and I do have some magnets in here. And I have a couple of videos on that where I can get some neodymium magnets, and I can make a void in there, and as it gets to the top of the void, stop, put the magnet in, and start it again to let it close over. So those are two reasons that I need this. Now, having a filament change point will work, but the issue with that is that I don't need. It kind of wastes some time. It does two things. One, it wastes a few button presses because it shoots it out. I have to put it back in. Sometimes to cut the filament and lose a little bit of filament. Not a big deal. But the other thing is it doesn't stick it out far enough necessarily if I need it that way. So that's what I need. And so you can change this by fiddling with the Gcode. So with that, let me go make a simple, small design in Fusion 360 as our test case, and then we'll slice that, and I'll show you how to update the Gcode so you can pause it and have the Prusa stick its tongue out. Okay, so here I'm in Fusion 360. I'm just going to make a simple, small design so it'll go quickly that I can use to slice as an example for this. So I'll go down here, create a sketch on here. I'll hit my S key and I will choose a 2-point rectangle. And I'm just going to make this 10 millimeters. Type in 10, tab, 10. And now I've just got this square. I'll go back up here, hit the home. And then I'll do Q for a press pull. Press the Q button. And now I'll just extrude a little bit, make it 2 millimeters high. Let me cancel that for a second. Let me go back here and do another drawing here. I'll hit S because I want to do a void. So I'll choose a circle, get in the center there. Yeah, I'll put a circle right there. And then, okay, now I'll choose everything and press Q for press pull, and I'll do it 2 millimeters high and hit OK. And then let me remove my 3D object so I can see my sketch again. And then here I'll press Q for the press pull tool because now I'm going to make a void. So I'll say I'm going to offset it by 0.4 millimeters. And then we'll go up a little bit to, we'll go up to 1. And bring that body back so it'll subtract it. Boom. And so now I should be good. I can do a little quick inspection here. Hit inspect and sectional analysis. I can click on one of these sides. And as I go through, I should see there is my hole. But it looks like I didn't offset it very well. Okay, let me hit cancel here. Let me go back into my history here. I can right click on that, edit this feature, and my offset. Oh, there we go. I need to choose offset plane, and I'll say 0.4. There we go. Now let me try that again. And see if I have a nice void. Perfect, I got a nice little void here, so we can do some testing with that. Okay, so I hit cancel, I hit OK. And now I will make 3D print. Well, there's a couple ways to do this. That's one way. Another way is to actually click on the object. So I can, in this case, I didn't make separate objects, just one object. So I'll say, right click on this and go save as STL. And there's the object, hit OK. I'll put it on my desktop. And I'll call it Prusa test. Boom. Okay, so now I got my object. So now let me go, let's go make it in Prusa Control and in Prusa Slicer 2.0. Because now I'm trying to do both of them. So let me open up Prusa Control. Because Prusa Control, like I did in my last video, Prusa Control is dead. They're no longer be doing further development on it, but there's still kind of a need. It's still simpler than Prusa Slicer 2.0, but eventually we all need to move on to Prusa Slicer. Okay, so there is Prusa Control. And I will drop this in here. See, really, really tiny, because I don't want to waste a lot of time with a test, right? And we'll do 0.2 millimeters, support none, generate, should go pretty quick. And we can see there's my void. So what I'll do is I'll go, right when it starts, I'll put a change point here. You don't have to do this, but it makes it easier to update the Gcode because it's easier to find. So there's a filament change point. And I'll go up and I'll do it the next layer just for testing. It's just for testing, so I'll just do it every layer. And the layer closes over, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And save the Gcode. I will put it on my desktop, and I will call it Prusa test _ Prusa control. Because this was made with the Prusa control tool. Now, let me do the same thing with Prusa Slicer. Open up Prusa Slicer, drop this in, and hit slice now. Don't need to do a lot of fancy stuff with it. And then we will go up, up, up to 0.4. Oh, gotta do this. Still gotta get used to this tool. There we go. See, that's another thing, you know. I'm in simple mode. But see, now things are different. See, Prusa Slicer, I go up and down, but here I got an up and a down, which is interesting because it's making visually go away. It's an interesting tool, but I think that should be an advanced tab. I think this should look a lot more like Prusa Control. So here I have to choose the top one rather than, so I just made a simple mistake there that a lot of people would make. So let me go down to there. Let's see what I do. Did I do 0.6? Yeah, 0.6, 0.8. So same thing, I'll keep hitting this plus button and making these change points. And all the way 1.6. Yep, so that's a match. And so now that I have that, I need to save it. So it's all sliced, it's good to go. And I love this. Okay, so now Export Gcode. See, you need another button to generate. So I already sliced it anyway. Another complaint. It also could be a little user error there too. So rather than say, I'll say Prusa test, Prusa control, I'll say Prusa slicer. So now I should have my two Gcode files. There's the Prusa control Gcode and the Prusa slicer Gcode. So now let's go fiddle with the Gcode. Okay, so as we dive into Gcode, there's one little problem we have to overcome, which I have many ways of doing it, but I want to make this video simple and easy to understand. So first, we'll show you the simple thing. If I open up Notepad or any kind of just simple text tool I'm on Windows, Mac OS 10 will have some kind of simple tool just for editing text. And so what I can do is if I take the Prusa control and drop it into this, I can see here is my Gcode. Now you don't need to understand all this Gcode, but you can see, you can read it. And so the Prusa control made what I might call a proper Gcode file that's easy for an end user to see because it shows up just fine. Now if I open up another tool and I drop this in from Prusa Slicer, you see I get this. Now what's going on? They're both in essence the same file, but what happens is, for those who may not be aware, between Linux and Windows, they have a different way of dealing with carriage returns. The end of line is actually a character as far as the computer is concerned. Here's a character that says, hey, this is the end of the line, start the next line. And they use different characters. So Linux uses a character, Windows uses a different character. And so there's ways of doing both at the same time, but see, this shows up just fine on my system. This one is using the Linux returns, which makes a little bit of sense if you think a lot of coders, but a lot of coders don't think like normal human beings. I got a dozen ways to deal with this. In fact, this is preferable to me in many ways, but not to most of us human beings. So I think the easiest way, if you know how to deal with it, deal with it. If you don't, one of the easiest things I found for Windows is to go to notepadplus.org. You can see here's the site down here. Download this program. This gives you, it's kind of like Notepad, but it has a few more tools and it should be able to handle the different carriage returns. So I already downloaded it, so I installed it. So there's Notepad Plus. And let me kill what I opened there. So now if I bring the Prusa control in, it shows up fine. If I bring the Prusa slicer, it shows up fine too. And so let me go to the Prusa control here and let's go edit the Gcode. Before we do, let's go over a few things to help you out if you're unfamiliar with this. I'm not going to get into a big Gcode tutorial, but there's some tools and resources out there you might want to know about. First of all, and I'll put this link in the show notes, here is the supported Gcodes that the Prusa i3 Mark III supports. And so some of these are specialized code. What we're going to be using in this one is, of course, we're using G1, but the big one we're going to be using is M105. Oh, no, sorry. M1. The big one we'll be using is called M1. And M1 waits for the user to press a knob. So that's our pause. So that will pause and do what we want to do. We're going to use a few other pieces of code, but that's the big one. And over here, this is where I found this when I was looking around. And there was some discussion on this forum, and I'll put a link in here, where they went back and forth with some people at Prusa telling you how to do this. And they gave this example of code. So here's a simple example of code that they came up with. This is what I'll be using. So with that in mind, let's get to coding a little tiny bit. Now, what I want to do is, because, what do I want to say? There's a couple ways to do this. So if you look at this code, let's see if I can make this text bigger. There we go. We can read it. There you go. So make this text bigger. So each line is a command. So this M17 tells the computer to do something. The semicolon says, hey, I'm done doing this command. Everything after this is just information. So the computer doesn't care about it, doesn't actually use it. It's helpful for us to read as human beings. So M107 apparently disables the fan. Hooray. and it tells you all this instructional stuff as far as Gcode goes. And so I can go down here and I can see before layer change, this is layer 0.2. So you can see this is all informational. So this next thing is the 0.2 layer. So I can go through and find, I could do a search for semicolon 0.6, and chances are we will find that layer, things to do before 0.6. But in this case, to make life easier, we did do a filament change. And if you go look at the possible codes, M600 is the code that Prusa uses for pause filament change. Now maybe other people do as well, but I haven't done enough Gcode research to say for sure. But M600 is the filament change, and so it makes our life easier. That's what I've been doing to use that, so I can go search for M600. Because in my case, I want to replace all the M600s with, rather than doing the pause, I want to stick its tongue out. I want to pause, stick its tongue out, not change the filament. So you can see, there we go. After layer change, 0.6, we're in the right spot. M600. So this will be the first one we fix. So what I'm going to do, I put a semicolon. So now, it actually won't do this M600. So that's informational. It's not going to do anything. So now I basically, for people who aren't coders, I commented, it's called commenting it out. So now it's commented out, it actually won't do it. So it's a way to leave the code in there just in case you want to go back and fix it, but it's actually not going to be executed. I should say run, it's not going to happen. So what I'll do here is I will copy my code over there. So here I'll do this one line at a time. So first of all, there's the G. So G1, it's going to tell it, hey, go to position X 10, position Y 200, and E0. And so what that's going to do is going to stick its tongue out. So that's the easiest way for it to put the whole thing out and stick its tongue out for you, so you can get to what you need to do. Then we have M1. So here, M1, it's going to stop, and it's going to wait for you to press a knob. So this is where you're good to go. So this is where it's going to stop, where you can do what you need to do, stick your magnet in there, stick your chain on top, and then after that, press the knob. And then this is where I still need to learn a little bit more, but they were suggesting doing M105, which would return it to the current temperature. So it'll make sure everything's back where it should be, and then after that, it just flows. So here, it'll position itself, then it stops and waits for you to press the knob. Once you press the knob, it continues on. So here, I'll copy this whole thing, and I'll do a search for the other M600s. So there's another one. Now, of course, I could just, replace them all, but there's not that many, so I'll just do it by hand. Find next. And either make sure to remove or comment out like I am. There we go. So we've done them all. So that looks good. They're all commented out. Over here we can see that's the line number in the file. So we've gotten through them all. Life is good. And I will save them. That's the Prusa control version. Now the Prusa slicer version is going to be the same thing. I'll go search for an M600. I'll comment it out and paste the same exact code. Nothing different. Okay, so did a double check on that. It all looks good. Code's in there. Okay, so that's saved. So now that we're good to go, let me go download it to my flash card and actually go run it. And so we'll see it in action. Okay, so I did a couple of tests. They're both working just fine. So I'm not going to run both of them here. I already ran both of them, so I'll just run one of them. So here, and I'll print the Prusa slicer one, but they both work the same. And so what it's going to do is it's just going to print a couple of layers, and then it's going to go to that layer where it stops, then basically stop every layer for several layers. I just want to show you how it works. Almost prepared. Oh, and one thing I like, since they're always improving the firmware, the latest time I updated the firmware on this Prusa i3 Mark III, the detection is so much faster now. It's like way faster. The bed leveling. So yay for progress. And this ought to be pretty tiny. And there we go. So it stuck it all the way out, went back to this position, and so now I can fiddle with it, do whatever I need to do, and then once I'm ready and to go again, all I gotta do is push the button. And now it'll go do the next layer, which is going to stop after the next layer too. So I'll let it go through a few layers here. And now you can see, now I'm getting to the point where I have the little circle inside. And so that's what I do on a bigger scale, where I put my magnets in. So I let it build up, have that void, and then I put something in it. Or I did the same thing when I was adding weights to a print. Or you could. Let's see how fast this goes. Now there could be some improvements in this, and I'll probably figure out a few over time, because if you're only doing one layer real quickly, it doesn't turn out to be a big deal. But if I did like several here, and you can start to see a little buildup over here. And actually on one it kind of built some junk over here. And so by the time I'm done, there might be some more in there. So maybe there's something where I need to go, before I stop, I need to maybe retract a little bit or do something like that. I haven't done any research on that yet, but I think there might be a better way. If you're doing a lot of retractions, this one, you can see it's starting to build up some more there. But for my purposes, I'm only usually doing it like once a time, one at a time. So I'm usually only doing this like on one layer. So it's usually not a big problem. There you go. You see a little bit more. So it's kind of building up. But anyway, I'm nearly done now. So that is how you can edit your G-code really quickly and have it stick its tongue out, so you can actually do something with the print and then restart it, rather than having just the filament pop in and out. If you don't need the filament to pop in and out, this is a good way to go. Hey, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, hey, give it a thumbs down. Also, if you like what we're doing here, subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button. And lastly, have a piece of info to share? Just post a comment.